There are many buildings in Guthrie, Oklahoma with historical significance, but one of the most unique may be the first territorial jail, commonly referred to as Black Jail. Prior to Oklahoma statehood, there was a need for law and order as the region underwent rapid settlement and development. Known as the first federal territorial prison, the Black Jail served as a temporary holding facility in Indian Territory for individuals who were accused of crimes, awaiting trial, or waiting to be transported to a more permanent prison. Constructed in 1892 of thick red sandstone, with very few windows, made conditions very dark inside, plus the jail cell doors were made of black wrought iron. Prisoners are the ones who nicknamed the facility as the Black Jail. The jail was promoted as being inescapable, which was proven to be untrue as several escapes occurred. The most famous involved that of outlaw Bill Doolin on the evening of July 5, 1896. Jailers were overpowered by inmates. When it was all said and done, 14 men escaped, hightailing it into the darkness. Surprisingly, more men chose to stay rather than to make a run for it. One prisoner even alerted authorities of the jailbreak. A posse under Deputy U.S. Marshal Henry Heck Thomas tracked Doolin down near the town of Lawson in Pawnee County and shot him dead on August 25, 1896. Doolin's life of crime came to an end, and his body was transported back to Guthrie, where he was buried in the Boot Hill section of Summit View Cemetery. So why did I go into the prison? One of my favorite passions and hobbies is paranormal investigating. The building is rumored to be haunted, and I was lucky enough to have the opportunity many years ago to go inside to investigate. The building was once featured on Travel Channel's show Ghost Adventures with Zach Bagans. It's season 14, episode 3, if you want to go watch it. One story exists about a man named James Phillips. In June 1907, Phillips was sentenced to hang in the prison. As Phillips watched the gallows being built across the street, he fell back on his bed and died. The coroner's report stated that he died of fright. It is rumored that James's ghost haunts the halls of the prison. When my team was on one end of the building, we all heard what sounded like a jail door closing, the sound of metal clanking as if a jail door had been slammed shut. We never could find a plausible explanation for the sound. Perhaps it was Mr. Phillips. We were also privileged enough to hear the disembodied voice of a woman singing. It sounded like she was singing a church hymn, which really didn't make sense at the time until we learned more history of the building. The place that once held lost souls transformed into a place that saved souls. The Nazarene Church occupied the building for over 50 years. Finally, the church moved to a larger location in the 1970s. Holding church and a place of worship in a location for so many years corresponded with the singing voice that we heard while on site. The story of the jail building is about to take a slightly darker turn. In the early 1990s, the building was bought by a woman named Linda Green to house her cult. Yes, you heard me right, her cult, called the Samaritan Foundation, whose mission was to rid the world of evil. Green held seminars in Guthrie where cult members would come to reside and cut off all communication with their families. Quirky Chicago documentary filmmaker Alan Ross visited several times to the Guthrie seminars and ended up staying. He eventually married Linda Green. A man named Jonathan George from Massachusetts reported his wife Nellie and their children missing after they did not return home after a 10-day seminar in Guthrie. Nellie George and her children were found living in the old federal prison building in Linda Green's cult. Mrs. George declared she did not want to return to her husband and filed for separation. After an emergency hearing on October 14, 1993, the children were sent back to their father in Massachusetts. The incident brought the cult's activities under closer scrutiny. After numerous reports came into the local police department, the building was inspected and found to be in horrible condition of neglect. Department of Human Services was informed the building was deemed inhabitable for any living persons. The cult packed up their belongings and bolted to Cheyenne, Wyoming. Alan Ross was murdered on November 22, 1995. His body was located in the basement inside his home in Wyoming. Shortly after Ross's death, the Samaritan group disbanded. Ross's body was not found until July 17, 2000. He had been placed in a shallow grave in a crawl space within the basement. I'm not sure why law enforcement did not find Alan on their initial search of the house. Prosecutors believe that Linda Green committed the murder, but she was never charged. Linda died of liver failure on March 18, 2002. Her family said she began to drink heavily to quiet the voices in her head. Interesting. Julia Williams, a fellow cult member, was found guilty of being an accessory after the fact to murder by helping bury the body in the basement. Julia was sentenced to 2 years in prison. If walls could talk, this building would have a lot to say. The original purpose of the building serves as a reminder of the challenges faced by early settlers and the efforts to establish a sense of order in the evolving territory. Over the years, there's been efforts to preserve and maintain the Black Jail as a historic site. I hope one day the site can be saved and turned into a museum. Until next time, bye for now.